The council unified for millennia was fracturing. Morleth raised his hand for silence. Officer Beck-Jew. The Galactic Council watched in horror as humans emerged from the quarantine zone. The alert came during the council's tour of a human relay station. High Chancellor Morleth was examining the micro-wormhole technology, still trying to understand how humans had achieved what council scientists deemed impossible, when every display in the facility turned red. Deep space contact, the automated system announced. Massive energy signatures emerging from the void. Profile matches historical records. Void swarm detected. Estimated arrival at inhabited space 14 standard days. The chamber fell silent. Every species present knew what the void swarm meant. Death. Destruction. The ancient hunger that emerged from dark space every few thousand years, consuming everything in its path. The council had survived previous swarms, but barely, and always with catastrophic losses. Admiral Khaldun activated his communication device with shaking tentacles. How many ships? The response was grim. Preliminary scans show thousands, possibly tens of thousands. This is the largest swarm in recorded history. Morleth felt his ancient heart sink. The last swarm 2,000 years ago had killed billions. Entire civilizations had been reduced to ruins. And that swarm had been smaller, much smaller. We must begin evacuation protocols, Counselor Vexthor said, his feathers flat with fear. Pull back to the core systems. Abandon the rim worlds. Abandon? Ambassador Park Junho stepped forward. He had been observing the tour quietly, but now his expression was intense. You would leave billions to die? We have no choice, Morleth said heavily. The void swarm cannot be fought, only survived. We retreat, defend the most populated systems, and hope they pass through quickly. You have fought them before? Park Junho asked. 3 times in council history, Vexthor replied. We lost 20% of our population each time. The swarm consumes all biological matter and moves on. We endure. That is all we can do. Park Junho exchanged glances with Captain Lee Doyen and Dr. Kim Mireille. Something passed between them, some unspoken communication. Then Park Junho turned back to the council. What if we could do more than endure? He asked. What if we could fight? The swarm cannot be defeated, Admiral Khaldun said firmly. We have tried. Every weapon, every strategy. They adapt too quickly. They consume and multiply. Fighting only feeds them. You have tried with council technology, Captain Lee Doyen said quietly. You have not tried with human weapons. The council members stared at the humans. Morleth felt a chill run through his scales. You have weapons capable of fighting the swarm? We don't know, Dr. Kim Mireille admitted. We have never faced them. But we have studied your historical records. We have analyzed every engagement. And we have prepared. Prepared how? Demanded Khaldun. Captain Lee Doyen activated his own holographic display. The star map transformed, showing human positions throughout the galaxy. But now additional markers appeared. Defense platforms, fleet staging areas, weapons emplacements, hundreds of them, strategically positioned along likely swarm approach vectors. We knew the swarm would return, Lee Doyen explained. Your history shows they appear every 4,000 to 5,000 years. We have been watching for them, preparing for them for the last 2 centuries. We were quarantined, but we were not blind. We knew that if we ever joined the galaxy, we would need to face this threat. Admiral Khaldun studied the display with growing shock. This is a military infrastructure larger than our entire fleet. You built this in secret? We built it in silence, Lee Doyen corrected. There is a difference. We did not hide to deceive. We remained quiet to avoid causing panic. But yes, humanity has a military fleet. We always have. Peace requires the strength to defend it. Show us, Morleth commanded. What happened next would be discussed in galactic histories for millennia. The Human Defense Network activated fully for the first time. Stealth fields dropped from vessels that had been hiding in plain sight. Construction facilities that appeared to be simple mining operations revealed their true purpose as warship manufacturing plants. Weapon platforms emerged from asteroid belts and gas giants. Fleet Admiral Song Hee-jin appeared on the display, broadcasting from the human flagship Indomitable. She was a stern woman with iron-gray hair and eyes that had seen too much combat in humanity's violent past. High Chancellor, she said crisply, I am placing the human defense fleet at the Council's disposal. We have 600 capital ships, 3,000 frigates, and 15,000 fighter craft. All are at maximum readiness. With your permission, we will coordinate a joint defense. Vexthor's beak fell open. 600 capital ships? We have 400 in our entire fleet. We know, Song Hyejin replied. We have been watching you, remember? We know your capabilities. We built ours to supplement, not compete. The council had no choice. The swarm was coming, and suddenly, humanity offered hope they had never had before. Morlith gave the authorization, and the galaxy prepared for war. The next 10 days were chaos. Human and council forces coordinated for the first time, establishing defensive lines, evacuating civilians from the outer systems, and preparing weapons. The humans moved with efficiency that astounded the council. Their ships were faster, their coordination tighter, their strategies more adaptive. Scientist Oh Taiyang worked with council researchers, sharing human analysis of the swarm. They are not mindless, he explained. They are a hive intelligence coordinated by a central queen entity. The council has always fought the individual ships. We need to target the coordination network. We have tried disrupting their communications, a council scientist objected. It does not work. Because you used electromagnetic disruption, Oh Taiyang said. The swarm does not use EM communication. They use quantum entanglement. We have developed a weapon that can disrupt quantum states. Theoretically, it should interfere with their hive coordination. Theoretically? The scientist asked nervously. Oh Taiyang smiled grimly. We are about to find out. The void swarm arrived on schedule, emerging from dark space like a plague of locusts. The first wave hit the outer defenses with overwhelming force. Council ships engaged, firing traditional kinetic and energy weapons. The swarm ships absorbed the attacks, adapted, and pushed forward. Then the human fleet arrived. Captain Ryu Jiho led the first fighter wing into combat. His squadron flew with a precision that seemed almost telepathic, weaving through swarm formations with breathtaking agility. But they were not just attacking. They were coordinating with capital ships, creating openings, exploiting weaknesses. Target the cluster ships. Ryu Jiho's voice crackled across the comms. Those are the coordination nodes. Take them down! The human fighters dove into swarm formations that would have torn council pilots apart. They flew recklessly, yet with perfect control. When swarm ships moved to intercept, the fighters did something unexpected. They deliberately drew fire, leading the enemy into kill zones where human capital ships waited. They are using themselves as bait. Admiral Khaldun breathed, watching from his command ship. They sacrifice themselves for tactical advantage. Not sacrifice, Captain Li Doyen corrected from the Persistence, fighting alongside the council fleet. Trust. They trust their pilots to survive because they have trained for this. Watch. The fighters that had drawn enemy fire suddenly broke formation, scattering in apparently random patterns. The swarm ships, committed to pursuit, flew directly into overlapping fields of fire from human destroyers. Dozens of swarm vessels exploded simultaneously. It is a dance, Counselor Thexara whispered, transfixed by the tactical display. They move as one, yet each part knows its role. The battle raged for hours. The swarm was vast, its numbers seeming infinite. But the human council forces held. More importantly, they pushed back. For the first time in galactic history, the void swarm was not advancing unchecked. Then Oh Taiyang deployed his quantum disruptor. The weapon did not fire explosive rounds or energy beams. Instead, it broadcast a field that interfered with quantum entanglement. The effect on the swarm was immediate and dramatic. Ships that had moved with perfect coordination suddenly flew erratically, colliding with each other, breaking formation. It is working. Oh Taiyang shouted. The hive coordination is disrupted. Admiral Song Hyejin saw the opportunity. All forces concentrate fire on the central mass. That is where the Queen will be. We end this now. The combined fleet pressed the attack. Human ships took horrific damage, but they did not retreat. When a council cruiser's shields failed, a human destroyer moved to cover it, absorbing fire meant for the alien vessel. When human fighters ran low on ammunition, council support craft rushed forward to resupply them. Two species that had been separate days ago now fought as one. Dr. Kim Mirai, monitoring the battle from the Persistence, noticed something odd in the swarm's communication patterns. Captain, I am detecting a signal. It is not an attack. It is language. The swarm is trying to communicate? Li Doyen asked, shocked. I think the Queen wants to talk. Against all protocol, against all sense, Dr. Kim Mirai opened a channel. The response was alien, painful to hear, but the translation systems managed to process it. Why do you fight so hard? The Swarm Queen asked. We consume. It is our nature. We do not hate. We simply are. The Galactic Council watched in horror as humans emerged from the quarantine zone. The success at Kexnar should have been a triumph. Instead, it became a source of growing paranoia within the Galactic Council. High Chancellor Morleth convened an emergency security session, and the chamber buzzed with anxious energy. 40 systems, Admiral Khaldun said, his tentacles gesturing at the tactical display. We knew of 40 human presence points when they emerged. Our latest intelligence suggests the number is closer to 200. Counselor Vexthor felt his feathers stand on end. 200? How is that possible? We have been monitoring constantly since their emergence. Because they were already there, Counselor Thexara said quietly. They did not arrive recently. They have been building their network for centuries, maybe longer. Morleth stared at the star map. Tiny red dots marked confirmed human presence. They formed a web across the galaxy, connecting major trade routes surrounding key systems, positioning themselves everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. I want answers, Morleth declared. Deploy intelligence assets. Find out what the humans are really doing. The Council's best agent for such work was Vintar, a shadow operative from a species that could change their appearance at will. Vintar had infiltrated criminal organizations, exposed corrupt politicians, and uncovered countless conspiracies. Finding human secrets should have been routine. It was not. Vintar began on a rim world called Nexus 7, a trading hub where human merchants had recently established operations. The human presence was obvious and open. Too open, a simple trading post run by a cheerful human named Kang Minho, who seemed more interested in making friends than profit. Welcome, welcome. Kang Minho greeted every customer personally, his smile genuine. He spoke a dozen languages fluently. His prices were fair, sometimes too fair. His goods were superior to local products, yet cheaper. Vintar, disguised as a local trader, spent weeks observing. Kang Minho's operation was clean. No contraband. No weapons. Just legitimate trade in medical supplies, agricultural technology, and consumer goods. Yet something felt wrong. The other merchants were going out of business, unable to compete with human efficiency and pricing. How do you do it? Vintar asked one day, maintaining their disguise. Your prices are too low. You must be operating at a loss. Kang Minho laughed. Not at all, friend. We simply have better production methods, more efficient supply chains, and honestly, we do not need much profit. We are here to help, not to get rich. No one trades to help, Vintar said skeptically. Then you have not met humans before, Kang Minho replied. We spent 3,000 years learning to work together. Competition is useful, but cooperation is better. We help you, you help us, everyone benefits. It sounded too good to be true. Vintar dug deeper, tracking shipments, following supply routes. Every lead ended at another human outpost, each one operating with the same suspicious efficiency. The network was vast and interconnected, moving goods at speeds that should have been impossible. Then Vintar discovered the relay stations. They were hidden in plain sight, disguised as mining operations or research outposts in uninhabited systems. Vintar infiltrated one, expecting to find weapons or military installations. Instead, they found something more disturbing: technology beyond Council understanding. The stations used micro-wormholes to transport goods instantaneously across vast distances. No wonder human merchants could offer such competitive prices. They had no shipping costs, no delays. A request on one side of the galaxy could be fulfilled from a warehouse on the other side within hours. Vintar reported the findings to Admiral Khaldun, who immediately called for a council session. This is an invasion, the Admiral insisted. Economic warfare. They are undermining our established trade networks, making species dependent on human goods. Or, Thexara countered, they are providing better services than we do. Is that a crime? It is if their intent is control, Khaldun argued. But proving intent was impossible. Everywhere Vintar looked, humans were genuinely helping. On agricultural worlds, they introduced farming techniques that increased yields without harming the environment. On medical stations, they shared treatments for diseases the Council had given up trying to cure. On disaster sites, human aid arrived faster than Council response teams, asking nothing in return. Vintar's investigation led to a dozen worlds, then 2 dozen. On each one, the pattern repeated. Humans helping, humans healing, humans building connections with local populations. It was the most effective infiltration operation Vintar had ever seen, precisely because it did not look like infiltration. Then Vintar met Officer Baek Jawan. It happened on a space station in the Outer Rim. Vintar, still disguised, was following a lead on human intelligence operations. They were being careful, using every trick learned over decades of spycraft. It should have been impossible to detect them. "You have been following me for 3 days," a voice said behind them in perfect galactic standard. "We should talk." Vintar spun, reaching for a concealed weapon. A human woman stood there, hands visible and empty, smiling slightly. She wore simple civilian clothes, but her eyes held the sharp awareness of a professional. "I am Officer Baek Jiwon, Human Intelligence Division," she said, "and you are Agent Vintar of the Galactic Council. Your disguise is excellent, by the way. It took our systems 48 hours to identify you." Vintar's blood ran cold. "How did you know I was Council?" "Because we have been watching the Council watch us," Baek Jiwon replied. She gestured to a nearby cafe. "Come, let me buy you a drink and explain some things. No threats, no violence, just conversation." Vintar knew they should refuse. Should report this contact immediately, but curiosity won. They followed Baek Jiwon to a quiet corner table. "You want to know our intentions," Baek Jiwon said after ordering drinks. "You want to understand our network. I am authorized to tell you some of it. Not all, but some. Why would you reveal your operations?" Vintar asked. "Because transparency builds trust," Baek Jiwon said, "and because you would figure it out eventually anyway. We prefer cooperation to deception." She pulled out a small device projecting a holographic timeline. 1,000 years ago, we achieved micro-wormhole technology. We began sending construction drones through, building relay stations in uninhabited systems. For 900 years, we simply observed and learned. We watched the Council. We studied your species. We prepared? Prepared for what? Vintar demanded. Invasion? Baek Jiwon's expression turned serious. Prepared to help. We saw your struggles. The Nexivore plague that killed millions because your medical technology was insufficient. We developed a cure but could not share it through the barrier. The famine on Kelthar 7 when crops failed. We had agricultural solutions but were trapped. We spent centuries watching species suffer, knowing we could help but unable to reach them. So you broke free to become saviors? Vintar said sarcastically. We broke free because isolation is death, Baek Jiwon corrected. For us and for you. The galaxy faces threats the Council cannot handle alone. We have been monitoring them. Deep space anomalies, strange signals from dark regions, the void swarms that appear every few millennia. You survive these threats, but you do not thrive. We want to change that. She leaned forward. Every outpost we built, every connection we made was in preparation for this moment. We are not invading. We are integrating. We are offering partnership to every species willing to accept it. And those who refuse? Vintar asked. They refuse, Baek Jiwon said simply. We do not force. We do not conquer. We offer and you choose. Vintar studied the human carefully. Everything about this conversation violated standard intelligence protocols. You did not reveal operations to enemy agents. You did not explain your strategy, unless the strategy was so vast and inevitable that explaining it changed nothing. You are saying your network is unstoppable, Vintar realized. I am saying it is already complete, Baek Jiwon replied. We have stations in 200 systems, connections with 3,000 species, trade agreements with half the independent worlds in the galaxy. We did not announce this because we wanted to avoid panic. But yes, humanity is now part of the galactic fabric. The question is not whether we stay, but how we work together going forward. Back on the council chamber, Morleth listened to Vintar's report with growing concern. Other council members shouted for military action, for sanctions, for anything that would restore the old order. They have outmaneuvered us completely, Vexthor said, his voice hollow. While we watched their quarantine zone, they were already here, everywhere, waiting. Not just waiting, Thexara added. She had been compiling reports from dozens of worlds. They have been helping. Medical aid, agricultural support, disaster relief, all provided quietly, with no demands for payment or loyalty. They have been earning trust while we were not looking. It is manipulation, Admiral Khaldun insisted. Is it? Councillor Mora, a representative from a developing world, spoke up. When the crystal plague struck my homeworld last year, the council said help would take months. Human aid arrived in 3 days. They asked for nothing. They saved millions. You call it manipulation. I call it mercy. The chamber erupted in argument. Some species supported the humans. Others feared them. The Galactic Council watched in horror as humans emerged from the quarantine zone. The border world of Kexnar was dying. Captain Lee Doyen stood on the observation deck of the Persistence, watching orbital bombardment light up the planet's surface like deadly fireworks. Felkor warships fired from one side of the planet, while Nimrath hive ships attacked from the other. Caught between them, civilian settlements burned. 300 years of this, Dr. Nam Sora said quietly beside him. The historian had spent decades studying both civilizations through the quarantine barrier. The original dispute was over a temple complex. Now neither side remembers why they fight. They only remember that they hate each other. Then we remind them, Commander Yoon Hajin said from behind them. The Special Forces officer checked his equipment with practiced efficiency. Or better yet, we show them what they've forgotten. Ambassador Park Junho joined them, freshly arrived from another meeting with both sides. He looked exhausted. The Felkor warlord Felkon refuses to negotiate unless the Nimrath withdraw completely. The Nimrath matriarch Nimeva insists the Felkor attacked first and owes reparations. Both are wrong. Both are right. Both are trapped in a cycle they cannot escape. Every war is like this, Lee Doyen observed. Pride becomes more important than survival. Honor becomes an excuse for murder. We have seen it before. Yes, Park Junho agreed. In our own history. That is why we know how to end it. The Galactic Council observers watched from their own vessel, keeping a safe distance. Counselor Vexthor had insisted on monitoring the human mediation attempt. He expected failure, perhaps even hoped for it. If humans failed this test, the Council could justify extending their isolation indefinitely. But the humans did not fail. They did something the Council had never considered. They split up. Commander Yoon Hajin took a small team directly to the surface, inserting into civilian populations on both sides. He wore no weapons, carried only medical supplies and food. His team members, all trained in special operations, used their skills not for combat but for something more subtle. They listened. In Felkor refugee camps, Yoon Hajin sat with families huddled in makeshift shelters. He helped treat wounded children. He shared rations with the elderly, and he asked questions, simple questions. What did they want? Not their leaders, but them. The mothers, the fathers, the children. The answers were always the same. They wanted the war to end. They wanted to go home. They wanted safety. Then why do you fight? Yoon Hajin asked a young Felkor soldier, barely old enough to hold a rifle. The soldier looked confused. Because we must. Because they attacked us. Did you see the attack? No. But everyone knows they struck first. Everyone knows. Yoon Hajin repeated softly. But does anyone remember? Meanwhile, Dr. Nam Sora met with both civilizations' historical councils. She brought with her something neither side possessed, complete records of their shared past. The humans, watching through the quarantine barrier for thousands of years, had recorded everything. Every transmission, every broadcast, every piece of history both sides had lost or distorted over 3 centuries of war. The Temple of Shared Light, Nam Sora explained, projecting holographic images. Built 1,000 years ago by both your species together. The Felkor provided the architectural knowledge. The Nimrath provided the biological materials that made the living gardens. It was a symbol of cooperation. The Felkor historians shifted uncomfortably. That is not how we remember it. That is because memory fades, Nam Sora said gently. And when memory fades, we fill the gaps with assumptions. You assumed your ancestors built it alone. The Nimrath assumed the same. The truth is that you built it together, and when a natural disaster damaged it 300 years ago, both sides blamed each other for the loss. The war began over a misunderstanding. She showed them footage recovered from ancient satellites still orbiting the disputed world. The disaster had been a meteor strike, nothing more. No sabotage, no attack, just terrible luck and the paranoia that followed. On the Persistence, Captain Lee Doyen and Ambassador Park Junho engaged in shuttle diplomacy, meeting with military commanders from both sides. Not together, that would come later. For now, separately, building trust one conversation at a time. "You are warriors," Li Doyen said to Warlord Falcon. The Felker commander was massive, his forearms ending in natural weapons, his exoskeleton scarred from countless battles. "You fight because you believe it is your duty." "Yes," Falcon growled. "My duty is to protect my people." "Then protect them," Li Doyen said simply. "End the war. The greatest warrior is not the one who wins every battle. It is the one who prevents the battle from happening." Falcon laughed bitterly. "The Nimrath will never accept peace. They are consumed by vengeance." "As are you," Li Doyen replied. "You have become what you hate. The question is, are you strong enough to stop?" To Matriarch Nimava, Ambassador Park Junho spoke of legacy. The ancient Nimrath leader was part of a hive mind, connected to millions of her species. She felt their pain, their fear, their anger. "Your people suffer," Park Junho said. "Every day this war continues, more of your collective consciousness is lost. You are literally dying piece by piece. Is pride worth extinction?" "The Felker must pay for their crimes," Nimava insisted. "What crimes?" Park Junho asked. "Show me evidence. Show me proof that they attacked first, deliberately, maliciously. Not assumptions. Not stories, evidence the matriarch could not. Because none existed. The war had been built on 3 centuries of assumptions, each side blaming the other for a tragedy that had no villain. The turning point came when Commander Yun Ha-jin arranged something unprecedented. Using intelligence gathered from his civilian contacts, he identified individuals on both sides who secretly wanted peace. Teachers, doctors, parents, people who had lost too much and could not bear to lose more. He brought them together in secret, in a neutral location on the surface. Felkor and Nimrath, sitting in the same room for the first time in centuries without weapons. At first, they sat in hostile silence. Then Yun Ha-jin asked them each to share one story. Not of battle, not of glory, a story of loss. A Felkor mother spoke of her daughter, killed in a bombardment 3 years prior. A Nimrath father spoke of his son, lost to a Felkor raid. As they spoke, something remarkable happened. They realized their stories were the same. They had been enemies for so long that they had forgotten they shared the same pain, the same grief, the same desperate desire for the killing to stop. "We are pawns," one of the Felkor teachers said quietly. "Our leaders tell us we fight for honor. But honor is cold comfort when you bury your children." The meeting was broadcast. Yun Ha-jin had arranged for both sides' civilian networks to receive the feed. Millions watched as former enemies wept together, united in their shared suffering. The public pressure became impossible to ignore. When Warlord Falcon and Matriarch Nimava finally agreed to meet, it was Dr. Nam Sora who facilitated. She showed them the truth of their history. The temple they fought over had been built together. The disaster that sparked the war had been natural, not an attack. 300 years of death over a misunderstanding. Ambassador Park Junho presented the solution. The Temple of Shared Light can be rebuilt, together, not as Felkor territory, not as Nimrath territory, as shared territory administered jointly, a symbol not of division, but of what you can accomplish when you work together. The Council suggested this years ago. Falcon objected. "We rejected it, because the Council suggested it as outsiders," Captain Li Doyen said. "We suggested as species who understand. We know what it is like to fight ourselves to the brink of extinction. We know the shame of letting pride overrule reason. We know how hard it is to take the first step toward peace. But we also know it is possible if you are brave enough to try." The negotiations took weeks. There were setbacks. Extremists on both sides attempted to sabotage the peace talks with acts of violence. But when they struck, the persistence was ready. Human ships intercepted missiles before they reached their targets. Human special forces neutralized bomb threats without firing a shot. The humans protected both sides equally, showing no favoritism, only commitment to peace. Finally, in a ceremony broadcast across both empires, Warlord Falcon and Matriarch Nimava signed the Treaty of Shared Light. They would rebuild the temple together. They would establish a joint council to govern the disputed territories. They would begin slowly, carefully, to end 3 centuries of hatred. On the council observation ship, Vex Thor watched in stunned silence. "They did it," he whispered. "They actually did it." Counselor Thexara nodded slowly. "They understood what we did not. This was never about negotiating between governments. It was about healing the people. The humans went to the source of the pain and addressed it directly. They are dangerous, Vexthor said, but his tone had changed. There was respect in his voice now, mixed with the fear. Yes, Texara agreed, but perhaps dangerous in a way the galaxy needs. The Galactic Council watched in horror as humans emerged from the quarantine zone. The neutral station hung in the void between human space and Council territory. It was a small diplomatic outpost, rarely used, but today it would host the most important meeting in galactic history. Ambassador Park Jun-ho stood in the airlock, waiting as the docking procedure completed. Behind him, Dr. Kim Mirai checked her translation device for the 100th time, while young engineer Choi Se-min fidgeted with excitement. Remember, Park Jun-ho said calmly, they expect monsters. We will show them something different. The airlock opened with a hiss. The human delegation stepped through into a large circular chamber. Waiting for them were 5 representatives of the Galactic Council, flanked by armed guards. Park Jun-ho noticed how the guards gripped their weapons tighter as the humans entered. Fear. Good. Fear meant respect. And respect was a starting point. High Chancellor Morleth stood at the center of the council delegation. The ancient reptilian studied the humans with eyes that had seen centuries pass. Park Jun-ho met that gaze without flinching and bowed slightly, a gesture of respect without submission. High Chancellor, Park Jun-ho said in perfect galactic standard, thank you for agreeing to meet with us. You speak our language well, Morleth observed. How is this possible? You have been isolated for 3,000 years. We have been listening for 2,800 of those years, Park Jun-ho replied. Your barrier prevented us from leaving, but it could not stop radio waves, quantum transmissions, or information. We have studied every broadcast, every treaty, every conflict. We know your history as well as our own. Councillor Vexthor's feathers ruffled with agitation. You spied on us for millennia? We learned from you, Dr. Kim Miri said, stepping forward. When your species first encountered the plague of Nextvor, we studied your medical response. When the Felkor and Nimrath went to war, we analyzed your diplomatic failures. When you established the free trade zones, we understood your economic principles. We have been students of galactic civilization since we first broke through your barrier and detected your signals. Students who plan invasion, Admiral Khaldun said coldly. We detected your ships in 40 systems. How did you bypass our sensors? What is your intent? Park Jun-ho smiled slightly. Our intent is coexistence, Admiral. As for how we spread so quickly, that is a long story. Engineer Choi Se-min can explain if you wish technical details. The young engineer stepped forward, practically bouncing with enthusiasm. The barrier technology you used was brilliant, by the way. Exotic matter stabilized by quantum field generators. We couldn't break through it for the first 200 years. But then we realized we didn't need to break it. We just needed to go around it. There is no around in space, Councillor Texara said, her forearms crossed skeptically. Not in normal space, no, Choi Se-min agreed. But in higher dimensions? Absolutely. We developed micro-wormhole technology, very small tunnels through space-time. Too small for ships, but perfect for sending through construction drones and materials. Over the past 1,000 years, we have built relay stations and outposts in uninhabited systems throughout the galaxy. Not to conquer, but to prepare for this day. The council representatives exchanged glances. 1,000 years of secret preparation. The implications were staggering. You violated the quarantine, Vexthor accused. You should have remained within your system. The quarantine was unjust, Park Jun-ho said, his voice hardening slightly. You imprisoned an entire species for the crimes of our ancestors. Yes, ancient humanity was violent and reckless. We were children playing with weapons we did not understand. But children grow up, Counselor. We have spent 3,000 years maturing. Words, Admiral Khaldun scoffed. Show us proof of this maturity. Dr. Kim Mirai activated a holographic projector. Images filled the space between the two delegations. Earth green and blue, clouds swirling across restored oceans. Cities that gleamed with clean energy. Forests where deserts had once been. This is our homeworld today, Kim Mirai explained. When you quarantined us, Earth was dying. The atmosphere was poisoned. The oceans were acidic. Species were going extinct daily. It took us 500 years, but we healed our world. We learned to live in balance with nature, not in conflict with it. More images appeared. Humans of different ethnic backgrounds working together. Cities with no visible weapons. Children playing in parks. We unified our species under a single government, Park Jun-ho continued. Not through conquest, but through consensus. We eliminated warfare. not by eliminating conflict, but by learning to resolve our differences through dialogue. We have not had a war in over 2,000 years. Impossible, Vexthor breathed. No species is so peaceful. We are not peaceful by nature, Park Junho admitted. We are peaceful by choice. Every day we choose cooperation over conflict. It is not easy. It is not natural to us. But it is necessary, and so we do it. Morleth leaned forward, his ancient eyes intense. If you are truly peaceful, why do your ships bristle with weapons? Our scans show massive power signatures. Defense, Park Junho said simply. We have learned from watching you, High Chancellor. The galaxy is not a safe place. The void swarms, the pirate clans, the rogue AI collectives. We prepare to protect ourselves. But protection and aggression are not the same thing. Pretty words, Admiral Khaldun said. But how do we know you speak truth? Test us, Park Junho offered. The council members conferred quietly. Finally, Morleth spoke. Very well. There is a conflict that has plagued the council for 3 centuries. The Felkor and Nimrath empires war over border worlds. Countless diplomatic missions have failed. Millions have died. If humanity is truly as wise and mature as you claim, mediate this conflict. Bring peace where we have failed. Park Junho did not hesitate. We accept. Just like that? Vexthor asked, surprised. You do not know the details. You do not understand the complexities. We understand that beings are dying, Dr. Kim Mire said quietly. That is all we need to know to accept. The details we can learn. The complexities we can untangle, but the dying must stop. As the meeting continued, Choi Samin noticed one of the station's environmental regulators flickering. The temperature had been unstable since they arrived. He moved to the panel, studied it for a moment, then made several adjustments. The flickering stopped. The air quality improved noticeably. Counselor Thexara had been watching. That system has been malfunctioning for weeks. Our best engineers could not fix it. Choi Samin shrugged. It wasn't broken. It was just inefficient. I improved the energy flow and updated the control algorithms. It should work better now than when it was new. The young human said it so casually, as if improving technology beyond its original specifications was normal. Thexara felt a chill. If their engineers were this talented, what else were humans capable of? The meeting lasted several more hours. The council asked questions, testing human knowledge and intentions. Park Junho answered each query with patience and honesty. He did not hide humanity's past violence. Instead, he spoke of how they had learned from their mistakes, how they had transformed their society through dedication and effort. Finally, Morleth stood. We will allow your mediation attempt. But understand, Ambassador, we will be watching closely. If this is deception, if you betray our trust, the full might of the Galactic Council will turn against you. We expect nothing less, Park Junho replied. And when we succeed, we hope you will reconsider humanity's place in the galaxy. If you succeed, Vexthor corrected. When, Dr. Kim Mire said with quiet confidence. We have learned much in 3,000 years, Counselor. One of the most important lessons is this. There is no problem that cannot be solved if all parties truly wish to solve it. Our task is to help the Felkor and Nimrath find that wish. As the human delegation returned to their ship, Admiral Khaldun turned to Morleth. You truly believe they can succeed where we failed? Morleth watched the human vessel depart, its dark hull vanishing into the stars. I do not know, Admiral, but I am beginning to understand why the Ancient Ones chose quarantine over extermination. Humanity is dangerous, yes, but perhaps not in the way we thought. Perhaps their true danger lies not in their capacity for violence, but in their capacity for change. The station fell silent as both delegations departed. Unknown to either group in 40 systems across the galaxy, human outposts activated communication arrays. Messages flowed through the micro-wormhole network. Humanity was coordinating, planning, preparing. The game had begun. The Galactic Council watched in horror as humans emerged from the quarantine zone. The alarm bells rang throughout the Galactic Council Assembly Hall, a sound that had not been heard in over 1,000 years. Counselor Vexthor spread his blue-feathered wings in distress as holographic displays flickered to life around the circular chamber. His eyes, large and golden, fixed on the data streaming across the screens. The readings made no sense. They couldn't be real. High Chancellor. Vexthor's voice cracked with barely contained panic. The barrier around Sector 447 has failed. High Chancellor Morleth rose slowly from his seat. The ancient reptilian had served on the council for 5 centuries, and in all that time, he had never felt fear like this. His scales, normally a dignified silver gray, darkened to almost black. Around him, representatives from 40 different species began shouting, their translators creating a cacophony of panic. Silence. Morleth's voice cut through the chaos. Confirm the breach. The tactical officer, a crystalline being named Silnex, manipulated the holographic controls with her geometric appendages. Confirmed, High Chancellor. The exotic matter generators maintaining the Sol quarantine zone have gone offline. All 37 stations simultaneously. This was not a malfunction. Then they destroyed it from inside, whispered Counselor Thexera, her forearms trembling. 3,000 years we kept them contained. 3,000 years and now they're free. The main display shifted, showing the void of space where the quarantine barrier had once shimmered with barely visible energy. Now that space was dark. No, not dark. Ships. Dozens of them emerging from points all around the former barrier. They moved with purpose, with coordination that spoke of careful planning. Vexthor felt his twin hearts beating faster. He had been there centuries ago when his predecessor cast the vote to quarantine humanity. He had studied the records, watched the ancient footage of humans warring among themselves. Nuclear fire consuming cities, biological weapons turning entire continents into wastelands. The humans had nearly destroyed themselves, and the Council had decided that such a violent species could never be allowed to spread among the stars. Deploy the defense fleets, Admiral Khaldun commanded, his tentacles flexing with military precision. Intercept pattern Gamma. We must contain them before they reach inhabited systems. Belay that order. Morleth's voice was firm. Look at their formation. They are not attacking. They are waiting, it was true. The human vessels had arranged themselves in a perfect sphere around the quarantine boundary. They held position, making no aggressive movements. Each ship was unlike anything in the Council's databases. Sleek, dark hulls that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. No obvious weapons ports, yet they radiated power that made the Council's sensors scream warnings. Incoming transmission, Silnex announced. They are broadcasting on all frequencies. Audio only. Play it, Morleth ordered. Static filled the chamber for a moment, then a voice emerged. It was calm, measured, speaking in perfect galactic standard. This is Captain Lee Doyen of the human exploration vessel Persistence. On behalf of the unified government of Earth and her colonies, humanity requests an audience with the Galactic Council. We come in peace. We have much to discuss. The simplicity of the message somehow made it more terrifying. Counselor Vexthor remembered the old reports. Humans had been fractured, divided into hundreds of nations, constantly fighting. Yet this Captain Doyen spoke of a unified government. How long had they been planning this? Colonies? Admiral Khaldun's voice rose. They speak of colonies. How is this possible? The barrier prevented all expansion beyond their home system. Apparently not, Thexera said quietly. Or they found a way around it. Morleth studied the display, his ancient mind working through scenarios. Scan their ships. Tell me what we face. Silnex worked silently for several minutes. When she spoke, her crystalline body actually flickered with distress. High Chancellor, I cannot get accurate readings. Their hulls are shielded by technology I do not recognize. However, based on energy signatures alone, each of those vessels has power output equivalent to a Council dreadnought. How many ships? Vexthor asked, though he feared the answer. We count 73 in immediate vicinity. But High Chancellor, Silnex paused, we are detecting similar energy signatures in 40 other systems. They are already everywhere. The chamber erupted again. 40 systems. Overnight, humanity had somehow positioned forces across a vast stretch of the galaxy. The Council had been watching the quarantine zone, confident in their exotic matter barrier, never imagining the humans might have been watching back. We should have destroyed them when we had the chance, snarled a counselor from the warrior species. Now they will destroy us. Or, Thexera said softly, we could hear what they have to say. Morleth closed his eyes. He thought back to the decision made 3 millennia ago. The Council had chosen quarantine over extermination, because the humans, despite their violence, had shown remarkable intelligence and creativity. They had reached their moon using primitive chemical rockets. They had split the atom within a century of discovering electricity. They had been dangerous, yes, but also fascinating. Open a channel, Morleth decided. Captain Doyen, This is High Chancellor Morleth of the Galactic Council. Your species was quarantined for the safety of all civilized worlds. You were deemed too violent, too reckless to join our community. Give me one reason why we should not treat your emergence as an act of war. The response came immediately. Because we are not the species you quarantined, High Chancellor. 3,000 years is a long time. We have changed. We have grown. We have learned. And we have been watching you, learning from your successes and your failures. We do not wish war. We wish understanding. Vexthor felt a chill run through his feathers. They had been watching. For how long? What did they know? The council will convene in private session, Morleth announced. Captain Doyen, you will hold position. We will render our decision within one standard cycle. We will wait, the human replied. We have become very good at patience. The transmission ended. Morleth looked around at his fellow council members. Some were afraid. Some were angry. A few, like Thexara, seemed curious. Begin immediate military preparations, Admiral Khaldun insisted. We must be ready. Agreed, Morleth said. But we will also prepare to receive a delegation. Let us see what humanity has become. Perhaps they truly have changed. Or perhaps they have simply learned to hide their nature better. As the council filed out to their private chambers, Vexthor remained behind, staring at the display. The human ships hung in space, dark and silent. Patient. After 3,000 years of imprisonment, they showed no signs of rage or revenge. That more than anything else disturbed him deeply. What kind of species learns patience from being caged?